From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
A dangerous and growing inequality and lack of upward mobility that has jeopardized middle-class America's basic bargain, that if you work hard, you have a chance to get ahead. I believe this is the defining challenge of our time, making sure our economy works for every working American.
As President Obama calls income inequality the defining challenge of our time, fast food workers in over 100 cities go on strike to demand a living wage. We'll get a report from inside one of the first McDonald's protests here in New York today and look at how fast food companies are pocketing massive taxpayer subsidies for CEO pay while working to keep low-level workers' wages so low they must rely on public assistance. Then we speak to investigative journalist Jeremy Scahill. His film Dirty Wars is one of 15 documentaries just shortlisted for an Oscar.
Aden. Yemen's ancient port city was nothing like Kabul. In Afghanistan, life was defined by the war. Everything revolved around it. But in Yemen, there was no war, at least not officially.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. New leaks from Edward Snowden show the National Security Agency is tracking the locations of cell phones worldwide on a massive scale. The Washington Post reports the NSA is gathering around 5 billion call records a day that show the whereabouts of cell phone users around the globe. The spying allows the NSA to track individuals' movements as well as their personal relationships. The records are fed into a database that monitors hundreds of millions of devices. The data is retrieved by tapping into the cable networks of mobile phones worldwide. Of all the NSA spying programs exposed by Snowden, the Washington Post says the mobile location tracking, quote, in scale, scope, and potential impact on privacy may be unsurpassed. Fast food workers are walking off the job in about 100 cities today in what organizers call their largest action to date. Today's strikes and protests continue a campaign that began last year to call for a living wage of $15 an hour and the right to form a union without retaliation. The fast food workers' strike comes one day after President Obama delivered an address drawing attention to widening inequality in the United States. Speaking in a low-income neighborhood in Washington, Obama offered a rare presidential acknowledgement of class divisions in the United States.
The opportunity gap in America is now as much about class as it is about race, and that gap is growing. So if we're going to take on growing inequality and try to improve upward mobility for all people, we've got to move beyond the false notion that this is an issue exclusively of minority concern. And we have to reject a politics that suggests any effort to address it in a meaningful way somehow pits the interests of a deserving middle class against those of an undeserving poor in search of handouts.
At least 30 people have reportedly been killed in a suicide attack on Yemen's defense ministry in the capital, Sana'a. A gun battle erupted after a car bomber drove into the Yemeni government compound. It was one of the worst attacks to hit Sana'a in over a year. Vice President Joe Biden's wrapped up a visit to China with a spat over an air defense zone still unresolved. The U.S. recently flew 2 warplanes over the disputed East China Sea, defying a Chinese demand that it must be notified. The U.S., Japan, and several other governments have rejected China's claim to an air defense zone over the area. China's foreign ministry says it told Biden the government's position is firm. Speaking to a group of U.S. corporate executives in China, Biden said the row has increased regional tensions. He added the U.S. has a major stake in the dispute because of its enduring status as a world power.
China's recent and sudden announcement of the establishment of a new air defense identification zone has, to state the obvious, caused significant apprehension in the region. And I was very direct about our firm position and our expectations in my conversations with President Xi. The United States has a profound stake in what happens here, because we need, and we are, and will remain a Pacific power, diplomatically, economically, and military. That's just a statement of fact.
Mexican authorities have ended a national health scare after recovering a truck carrying dangerous radioactive material. The truck held a sealed container of cobalt-60, a material used in radiotherapy. It was seized from a gas station near Mexico City while en route to a waste storage center. The cobalt-60 was found removed from its casing, meaning those who stole it are likely to die from exposure. The U.S. has repatriated 2 Guantanamo Bay prisoners to Algeria against their will. According to the Miami Herald, the prisoners had asked to be released to other countries, saying they feared for their safety if returned to Algeria, which they fled in the 1990s. The 2 were held without charge at Guantanamo for more than a decade. Their departure brings the total number of prisoners at Guantanamo to 164. On Monday, the Pentagon said 15 of the captives remain on hunger strike and are eligible for controversial force feedings. A new study says the number of U.S. college students graduating with loan debt is on the rise. According to the Project on Student Debt, 71% of students graduated with debt last year, up from 68% in 2008. The average debt load was $29,400, an increase of 6% every year. African-American students were most likely to graduate with heavy debt, with almost 1/3 owing at least $30,000. About 30 people held at an El Paso, Texas immigration prison have staged a sit-in calling for their release. Democracy Now! Spoke by phone with a detainee named Kumar who observed the protest.
They are from different countries. Some mostly are from India and a few guys from Mexico, Salvador, and Guatemala. They want release from detention center, but suddenly a few like officers, they came there, and I think so they are afraid, so they broke this protest today.
Kumar told Democracy Now! Protesters plan to go on a hunger strike but changed their mind after guards threatened to put them in solitary confinement. Officials at the El Paso Processing Center have denied the protest occurred. Some demonstrators claim they've been held more than a year pending their deportation, while others say they're still being detained even though their asylum bids have been approved. The group Dream Activist has launched a petition calling for a full review of the facility. Illinois has officially begun issuing driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants. Undocumented drivers began taking their road tests this week after winning the right to obtain licenses earlier this year. A Miami suburb is being sued for alleged police abuse and racial profiling. A group of plaintiffs in the predominantly black Miami Gardens has filed a federal civil rights case accusing police of unlawful searches and targeting people of color. One of the plaintiffs, who's black, says he's been unlawfully stopped, searched, or arrested 288 times since 2008, an average of roughly once a week over a 4-year period. A secretive group known for authoring and pushing through right-wing laws is preparing a new campaign against renewable energy and environmental regulation. According to The Guardian, the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC, has prepared a number of model bills that include blocking President Obama from cutting emissions, slowing the Environmental Protection Agency, and weakening state policies promoting clean energy. One measure would charge homeowners fees for installing their own solar panels. The new energy bills follow ALEC's sponsoring of at least 77 energy measures in 34 states last year. ALEC is holding a major policy meeting in Washington through Friday. The meeting hosts corporate lobbyists who vote alongside state lawmakers on model legislation that's then introduced in legislatures nationwide. The Guardian also reports ALEC is struggling to re-enlist donors after an exodus prompted by its backing of Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Stand Your Ground initially helped shield George Zimmerman from prosecution for killing Trayvon Martin and was later used in instructions to the jury that acquitted him. According to The Guardian, ALEC has lost nearly 400 state legislators from its network over the past 2 years and over 60 major corporate donors. The group's facing a funding shortfall for the first time after losing more than 1/3 of its projected income. Connecticut's released the 911 phone calls from the mass shooting at Newtown Sandy Hook Elementary after losing a court challenge by AP. State officials had argued the tapes would cause unnecessary suffering for the victims' families, but lost their appeal last month. In one recording, a caller described seeing the shooter.
Newtown 911, what's the location of the emergency?
Sandy Hook School. I think there's somebody shooting in here. Sandy Hook School.
Okay, what makes you think that?
Because somebody's got a gun. I saw a glimpse of somebody. They're running down the hallway.
Okay.
They're still running. They're still shooting. Sandy Hook School, please.
The first anniversary of the Newtown massacre is next week. Congress has failed to pass a single piece of gun control legislation in the year since, though a ban on plastic guns will likely be extended before the new year. And Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts has ruled out a presidential run in 2016. Warren had recently been the subject of growing speculation as a potential progressive challenger to Hillary Clinton, who's widely expected to seek the Democratic nomination. Senator Warren has generated a wide following as a vocal proponent of Wall Street regulation and the key figure behind the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But speaking to reporters Wednesday, Warren vowed to serve out the remainder of her Senate term through 2018. Supporters of a Warren candidacy note then-Senator Obama made the same pledge before changing his mind to run in 2008. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. Well